And today we're jumping into the ring and we're joined by top boxing coach Dave Coldwell.
My mum, she had this vision of what she wanted of me. I wasn't that vision. I go to school and get bullied and get picked on, made to be the joke of school basically. Because you're kind of like that, then all I'm thinking is one day I'm going to grow up and I'm going to have a nice family and people are going to know who I am. So I look at this guy, it looks like he's looking straight at me, literally growling at me. So I just turned around and I walked back out of the gym. No, you've got to do it. You've got to go back in. And I'm like, no, I can't do this. I can't. And eventually I plucked up the courage to walk back in again. I literally played football every day of my life while I was playing football. And when I started boxing, I was training Christmas Day. I was getting the key off at Brendan's gym and train on Christmas Day. Johnny was my role model where I wanted to be the next Johnny Nelson. I train young fighters now. What I'm trying to get into these fighters now is the way that my mind works now. I'm trying to instill them for them to take on things now.
But I was wondering, do you think you could get either of them up to any decent shape so they could take on Jake Paul?
Not everybody's going to be good enough to become world champion. Not everybody's going to be good enough to be an elite Premiership footballer. If you have those three things, then you can always improve.
Welcome to Power and Purpose, a podcast on leadership in sport, business and beyond. And we've got the band back together again. Yes, I'm Leon Mann. I'm joined by my fellow co-hosts, Will Trostakong and Mara Toje. How are you, fellas?
Very good, very good. Very happy to be with you two again. Feel like brothers reunited, so we're very happy.
The Three Musketeers, we're back again. Love it.
The Three Musketeers, we're back again, and we have company because we have explored rugby, we've explored darts and football, of course, on this podcast. And today we're jumping into the ring to get into some boxing insight, and we're joined by top boxing coach and pundit on Sky Sports, of course, Dave Coldwell. Chaps, how's your boxing knowledge?
I quite like boxing myself, I must say. I keep up to date with the big fights and the British, top fighters. So I'm very much looking forward to it.
Yeah, no, same for me. I think I watched the big fights. I've never actually been to a fight in person. That's on my to-do list, but I'm hoping soon, now a Riyadh season, I have a chance to go and watch a fight here in Saudi. But yeah, besides that, I wouldn't say that I'm very well educated from the whole boxing world, but I do follow the big fights, of course.
Well, once upon a time in a former life, I was ringside reporter for the BBC on boxing, so I used to enjoy that role immensely. I used to do a little bit of boxing down at Fitzroy Lodge, although I used to fight a lot of bags and just went lots of sparring. I decided I wasn't that into boxing, but it's a fantastic sport and the coaches are insane, and we are so blessed to have one of the best in the game joining us now. So cool. Let's welcome Dave to Power and Purpose. Hey Dave, thank you so much for joining us on Power and Purpose podcasts about purpose and power, about leadership in sport, business and beyond. How's your week been? How you doing?
Do you know what? Every week's a good week, I'll be honest with you, because every week of mine is busy. Busy in the gym with the fighters. Obviously, I have the challenges on the managing side, and then busy with my kids, my little boy playing football, things like that. So my afternoons stroke evenings are chock-a-block. So my days go really, really quickly. So I always have a good week, to be honest.
Love it. We were just having a chat. Will and Mara were talking about how much they enjoy boxing. But I was wondering, do you think you could get either of them up to any decent shape so they could take on Jake Paul?
Well, yeah, mate, 100%. Come on, let's do it. Come on. To be fair, I don't think there's going to be anything left of him after AJ gets his hands on him. So there's not much. I don't really put too much work into either you two guys.
Oh, well, I could say if they're offering anywhere close to the sort of money that they're offering to fight him, I'll do it.
And that is why the fight's happening.
Absolutely.
Dave, once again, thank you for your time. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on.
Looking at your story, I mean, it's a story of overcoming pain, adversity, setbacks, to go on to have an incredible career in so many different areas of boxing. But if it's okay with you, I'd love to start from the beginning. Could you tell us about growing up? Because you came from Calcutta, India to sunny Sheffield, if that's right. So what was that like in terms of growing up in that part of the world?
Well, back then, obviously, times were different. I lived, as you say, I came over when I was 1 year old. My dad's English, my mum was Indian. I came over to a place called Ecclesfield. Now Ecclesfield is a lovely place, or it was. I don't know what it's like now. I've been for a long time. It's a lovely place, but the only thing is basically we was the only non-white family in Ecclesfield. Basically, obviously my dad was English, but my mum and myself. So when I think in the juniors, I don't think it was anybody else. And then when I was in the comprehensive school, which is where things took a turn for the worse, to be fair, there was myself, there was one Asian girl in the same year, and there was one black kid who could fight. He was massive. He was like a tank on day one. He had this fight on day one of school and kicked the shit out of this kid, doing flying kicks and everything. So nobody ever touched him. And then above us, I think a year above us, there was another Asian brother and sister. And then that was it. The school was at like a 1,500 populated school. So we was like very, very much in a minority. Now, junior school, fine. Comprehensive school, not so much. It was rough. Unfortunately as well, I didn't have the best of relationships with my mother. Which ended up eventually having me leave home at 15 years old. So it was very, very rough, really rough.
And in terms of that experience as a young person, suffering racism, leaving home at 15, what did you learn about yourself, and how do you feel you developed at that stage? Because you kind of just have to deal with the situation as a kid at that time, right?
In the junior school wasn't so bad. I enjoyed junior school. It wasn't so bad. The issues are in the home life. Both my parents were alcoholics. Obviously, when I was young, I didn't understand what alcoholics was. But my dad was kind of like very passive. He was ruled by my mum. My mum was a violent alcoholic, and my dad was just kind of like a very quiet, within himself sort of grow. I mean, I remember it coming from a day's work, coming tired, plonk himself in his favorite chair, and as soon as he sits down, my mum would shout him to start doing jobs and doing this and doing that, and he was like, get up and start getting about his business. My mum, she had this vision of what she wanted of me. I wasn't that vision, so I got absolutely hammered. I got pasted every single day. It's to the point where I would be laid in bed, and every time I heard the steps go, I'd crap myself because I'd be terrified, because it's like, what's going to happen now? What have I done? You're trying to have a checklist in your head. What have I done now? What have I done? And if the door doesn't open, cool, everything's fine. If the door opens, then fear really kicks in. So yeah, it was rough, but it went on all the way through until I was 15. And when I went to the comp school, then it was kind of compounded, because it was a case of I go to school and get bullied and get picked on and get made to be the joke of school, basically. I was the smallest, still am. I was in the minority for my skin color, and at that point, my dad had lost his job, and so therefore, he never got another job again while I was at school. And so therefore, I was on the purple dinner tickets, where you get free dinners, and wearing the half-mast trousers because they were hand-me-downs and things like that from people, and so I got it kind of like from all different angles. So at school, it'd be a nightmare where you're terrified of the way that I was. I was very introverted, where I didn't fight back, and people be hitting me in the face, and I'd just carry on walking and kind of like be trying to put on a brave face, sort of thing. Not show them that I was scared. I would literally just take whatever they give me and just carry on trying to walk to my next lesson or anything. But then you'd get that at school, then you go back home and you get it from your mum at home as well. So the comprehensive years were where it was really hard work just getting through, and where it was very, very challenging, up here. So when you say what, how my mind was back then or anything, it was literally a day to day. I had a dream when I was a kid, right? When I was young, I wanted to be a footballer, and I played football. I'm the kind of person that when I want to do something, I throw myself at it, and I don't deviate. I don't have like backup plans and things. I'm like, all right, this is what I want to do. This is what I'm going to throw everything at it, and I'm willing to work harder than anybody else to do it. I always had a football at my feet. I had a dog and I had a football, and everybody used to know I used to do paper rounds. I'd have the paper bags on me. I had 2 paper rounds in the evening, 2 paper rounds in the morning, and I had a football and I'd take my dog, and I'd be doing keepers all the way around. I lived for football. So I wanted to be a footballer, and that was my purpose. That was my chase. And funny enough, as a kid, once I got to comp and things started getting rough on a social level, so you don't have friends, you don't, and nobody wants to, you're not the cool kid. Nobody wants to know you. So because you're kind of like that, then all I'm thinking is, one day I'm gonna grow up and I'm gonna have a nice family, and people are gonna know who I am. And that was what was in my head. I just wanted to forget childhood, make it out of childhood, grow up, have a nice family, and for people to know who I was. And that's genuinely why I'm now as an adult. I'm genuinely happy. There's not any, a lot of people will make out they're happy or pretend to be happy. No, I'm genuinely happy. I almost feel bulletproof, because I'm very comfortable in my own skin now, because I have a family and I've done what I wanted to do. Obviously now older, when you get older, you don't care whether people know who you are or anything like that. But what I'm saying is, the 2 things that got me through childhood are the 2 things that are my life now. So I've kind of like that little boy that fought so hard to get through childhood, I cracked it. So I'm genuinely happy.
Because I wanted to actually ask you about that. I think hearing you talk about your upbringing in such a calm manner for what a time that would have been absolute chaos, I can imagine, without an escape, home, school.
Do you know what? Do you know what word you just used there with that escape? Mate, that word for me, thinking about myself as a kid, that really hits home, because and nobody's ever said that in a conversation where it's tricky, but that just took me back, because I'm talking about my thoughts as a kid. You were saying that's how it was. I just wanted to escape.
Yeah, I could have really imagined. I think when you see successful people, and like you said, you've now become the person that you envisioned to be when you were a child. I think sometimes it can't be underestimated, the power of having a vision and having a dream and really chasing that, because I like you said, I think there's so much power and maybe real thought that would have gone into that, because that would have been your escape when you maybe close your eyes, or when you have something to hold on to, because everything else around you seems like complete chaos. But I just kind of wanted to bring that back to when you were that age. How was that, and how did you feel maybe with the people around you not understanding that was something you wanted to strive to? Was that something that you could share with anyone around you? Or was that something that you were just holding on to and had your own vision for the future?
So when at first it was football, and I love football. I played football teams, and I the only people that I got on with were kids that were older. And yeah, one or two kids your own age, but as soon as the cool kids or the bullying kids are around, it's like they palmed you off, kind of like didn't want to be, didn't really want to be associated in case they got targeted or just because it made them look uncool. But when I was younger and it was a football, then I was quite a popular kid in the school, playing for the school football team in junior school and playing in football teams and so the only struggle I had was the home life, but me trying to tell my parents, they came to one football game and that was it, one. And then every football match you'd be playing and you'd look outside, look it open, hoping they're going to be there. And you'd see all the other parents and then my parents won't be there. And I don't blame my dad. Well, I kind of do, but I don't really knock my dad for it because it just weren't his thing. Anyway, his idea of his kickabout would take the dog in the park. I'd have a football. He would kick the ball. He was a big guy. He'd have his hands in his pockets and he'd kick the ball as far as he can. And I'd run after the ball. So it kind of like fetch, but with a human. Do you know what I mean? And that was his idea as a kickabout. But at least he'd do that. My mum would be always playing down my dreams of being a footballer. Oh, you'll never do it. You're not any good, blah, blah. She always did that. And then actually, when I started boxing at 15, she always had the same thing then, When you're a kid and you're playing football, you don't really, or back then, it was just a given that I'm going to be a footballer. I want to be a footballer. That's what I want to do. Or people say, teachers ask you what you want to do. I want to be a footballer. Then at 15, I end up I hurt my knee and I end up having to have time out of football. And then something happened at school, right? So I was in metalwork, and it was in comp. I'm 15, and the lads locked me in this tin cupboard. It's only a thin sheet metal cupboard, it's backless apart from strips going across it. And so they've locked me in this, and then through the back they're throwing paper towels into the cupboard, and it's a little cupboard. And next minute they set fire to it. And so I've got a fire at my feet and I'm locked in this little metalwork cupboard. And so I'm banging. And I smashed it open. And I remember I just reached out and I just grabbed the first kid that were in front of me and I just grabbed hold of his throat and I just wouldn't let go. And they all got me off. And then I remember that was the day when I said to myself, it's all right, this happening while I'm a kid. But what happens when I get older and I'm walking out the street and I've got, as a kid, you don't think about I'm walking out the street and I've got a daughter. It was walking out the street with my son and a bully comes up. How am I going to A, protect or B, not look like a wimp in front of my kid? And that was where I was like, I need to start getting self-defense. Now, there were two options. Back then, you saw Karate Kid and there was Mike Tyson on the scene and Nigel Benn on the scene and people like that were household names. I kind of like, I'd get up in the middle of the night to watch Mike Tyson and I'd watch Nigel Benn. And after Ben Eubank, I made the decision I'm going to go and start boxing. I didn't tell my mum. And so I went, searched Brendan Ingle's gym. I spent a full day looking for that place. Couldn't find it. I finds out that I'm in the wrong place. I'm in Shire Green. I should be in Winkerbank. So I went the next.
No such thing as Google.
Yeah, no, exactly. This is it. We had to ask people. Excuse me, do you know where a boxing gym is? And people go, no wonder, because I went wrong place. So I ended up the day after. I walked into Brendan Ingle's gym for the first time, and that was the game changer.
So when you walked into the gym, was there someone there, who said, I want to be a boxer now at 15 years old, that said, okay, listen, son, this is what we're going to do? Or did you have to prove yourself again in that space?
Yeah, so it's quite funny actually. I walked into the gym. Now, it took a lot of courage for me to walk through those doors because I went on my own. And eventually, I've walked through the doors, and Brendan Ingle's gym, there's a big heavy door on the outside. It's an old chapel. You walk through 2 paces, and there's another big heavy door. And then you open that door, and it opens into the gym. I walk through the second door. I take 2 steps. I'll never forget this day. And as I've never been in a boxing gym before. I've never been in that environment before. And I just look to my right, and this guy, big black guy. Now I know what he's doing. He's squatting with a barbell on his neck, and he's squatting. But what happens when people lift heavy weights? They pull faces, don't they? Like aggressive faces. So I look at this guy. It looks like he's looking straight at me, literally growling at me. I shit myself. Absolutely. I just turned around and I walked back out of the gym. Promise that honestly, I walked straight back out of the gym, and I was like, I can't do this. I can't do this. And I had an argument with myself for about, it felt like 10, 15 minutes. I'm walking up and down. I'm walking back down the hill as though I'm going to go home. And I'm telling me, no, you've got to do it. You've got to go back in. And I'm like, no, I can't do this. I can't. And eventually I plucked up the courage to walk back in again. And there was a lady that come up to me. It turned out to be Ryan Rhodes' mum. Ryan Rhodes I ended up training Ryan Rhodes, like fast forward loads of years. But it was his mum. Can I help you? Blah blah. And I just said, I want to start boxing. And so then I started boxing.
So when you think about general people and general, I guess, children in society, if they have a troubled time at home as well as a troubled time at school,
Yeah,
that tends to be the prerequisite to, I guess, them doing dangerous things or them falling into the wrong crowd. But for your case, it doesn't seem like that.
yeah, 100%. I think because everybody said I couldn't do anything with my life, because everybody said, number one, football, you'll never be a footballer, or you're never going to do this, you're never going to do that. Because everyone said, you're a wimp, you're small, you're this, you're that. I've always had something. Do you know what? When people say that I can't do something and people say I'm crap at something, generally, it doesn't work in the way that they want it to. They want it to work in a way where it demeans you, where it makes you give in. For me, it makes me more stubborn. It might make me feel like I've got no confidence, like it did. It did. The way that my mother was with me and everybody else, I'm a wimp. I'm your classical wimp that you see in films. And so it destroyed my confidence. But even though it destroyed my confidence, what it did, it made me more stubborn not to give up. So even though I was useless in the beginning in boxing, it made me more determined to not just, it's not about proving them wrong, but it's also about proving that you can be something that they think you can't.
Yeah.
And so it just made me stubborn, and I just won't give up. I lost my first 8 amateur fights. Do you know what that makes you feel when you know then you're going to go back to school and they take the piss out of you because you've lost another fight, and it was embarrassing. It was soul destroying, but I just won't give in, and I just won't quit. And like I said to you, once I make my mind up, I want to do something, I throw myself at it, and I'm the hardest worker in the room. I never got outworked ever.
And where did that come from? Because it seems as if you didn't necessarily have the environment growing up that encouraged that. You didn't get it from a schooling environment as well. So where did that inner kind of stubbornness and grit come from?
I want it bad. Like I said, I literally played football every day of my life while I was playing football. Then when I started boxing, I was literally right every day of my life. I was training Christmas Day. I was getting the key off of Brendan's gym and train on Christmas Day I trained every day, and there was a big role model for me, in the Winkerbank gym, and that's Johnny Nelson. Now, Johnny went on to become world champion and ended up being world champion for 7 years. But before that, I saw him when he wasn't that great. I saw him when he was the guy that people take the piss out of because he didn't have the best record, because sometimes he'd stink the place out, because sometimes he'd get beat. And I saw that struggle that he had. And we had Naz in the gym. I was training alongside Naz. Now, Naz was the superstar, the dream. But Johnny was my role model, where I wanted to be the next Johnny Nelson. And so the impact that he had on my life in terms of how I stuck at it, because I would watch him and I just saw him how he's so disciplined. He used to do a little bodyweight circuit at the end of every training session, and I'd just follow him around and I'd copy him. I just copied him, and I'd copy him how he punch on the bags, and I just always thought that I've always been very realistic. So I knew I wasn't going to be a Naz, going to be a superstar and come up unbeaten and shit like that. But I saw how Johnny lost his first 3. I think Johnny lost about 8 out of 10 amateur fights. I lost 8 out of 11 amateur fights. He lost similar to me. Then Johnny lost his first 3 pros. And so because he had that struggle and he wasn't supposed to do anything, I always thought, right, I'm going to be like him. So I'm quite realistic. And so my role models and my icons are people that I can identify with, and I can think, yes, I can see myself doing that. I can see I won't, I'm not picking Naz and thinking, oh, I'm going to be like Naz, because it's not really realistic. So it's not likely to happen. So then there'll be more, because I know that I have to work so hard to get just to that level. There's going to be, because I'm not that good, so there's going to be a lot more downs and ups in the beginning. Well, something like Naz don't have that.
Oh, did it feel like a real vindication then when you got to your first pro win, to be like, okay, I've got here now? And it's not like you said proving people wrong, but maybe proving yourself right at that moment and knowing, okay, this is something that I want to continue from here. But how was that feeling for the first one?
It was amazing. My pro debut, I won my pro debut, and it was amazing. Great feeling. But because it's just one fight, you're just one fight in, and because of how I was, I wasn't the same person I am now. I wasn't confident. I wasn't at all. I never went to the ring thinking I was going to win. I literally walked to the ring thinking, what are you doing? You get beat. You get beat up. What are you doing? In the gym, I looked $1 million. In the gym, when there's no pressure on, I looked $1 million. And then when it came to fight time, I just didn't back myself. The one thing that I say to my son all the time, and my daughter, but my son especially with his football, is back yourself. Just back yourself. It doesn't matter what anybody else says. You've got to back yourself. Don't doubt yourself. Just back yourself. Because I know that I didn't back myself in my competitive career.
I wanted to ask you about that as well, because obviously I'm sure we're going to get into it about the different side now, where you are the one who is the talent, the trainer of the talent. But what seemed like your superpower, where you felt like you wanted to prove something to yourself, to everyone, and if someone told you no, that meant you wanted to get a yes even more. In your mind, if there was any doubt, like you were explaining now, where you felt like you still had to prove yourself and never really felt like that person that everyone else might think of for the cool kids at school or the superstar in the gym, when you're actually fighting, that must be such a disadvantage if you haven't got that mentality. Because when I look at fighters now, the first thing that strikes me is their absolute belief that they're going to win and that they're the best at all times, even when nobody else can see that in them yet. Whereas that might feel for you like, I don't know, I had to prove that, and you did, like you explained, didn't 100% feel like you are that person that needs to be has that confidence to be the best at that time.
It's so hard to, especially it's a combat sport, so you got somebody in front of you that's coming out there to smash your face in, right? Not only that, it's trained really hard. to do that one job. I was the kid that went to school and was terrified to walk around the corner on a corridor in case XYZ was stood there and then I've got to face them. I was that kid who would cross the road, cross the path, try and keep out of the way because I didn't not enjoy it, but I was scared of confrontation. Then all of a sudden, then I've got to walk to a ring, knowing I'm going to have a fight. The pressure that I felt with that, the worry that I felt for that it was never about because I was scared of getting hit. I was scared of getting hurt. I was scared of looking bad. I was scared of
would that be a reminder of your childhood?
Yeah.
If that was the case.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Because you don't so even now at 50, my body type I was as a kid is that skinny fat. So I've got no muscle, I'm skinny, and I have a little tub, right? And that was me. That was me before I started boxing, before I started training. And that was the kid that used to get picked on and bullied at school. So my fear is, still to this day at 50, is returning to that body type, because I don't want that. I don't want to go back in any way to the person that I was. I'm happy for what I went through, and I'm happy for what that kid brought me as a foundation for what I am now. But I don't want anything to do with it. Do you know what I mean?
So you speak about nerves. You speak about the worry of when you were going into a fight.
Yeah.
And in one of the environments I've recently been in, we spoke about the absurdity of worrying and how, you know, in many ways is not very helpful. But we have a number of people listening to the podcast, whether it's business people, whether it's young athletes, mature athletes. How did you overcome that worry, those nerves that were at one point felt a little bit debilitating for you?
So I train young fighters now. I've got three fighters. One's 22, one's 23, and one's 24. And then the oldest, there's a 25-year-old as well. They're all young fighters, but I've had one of them since he was 18. And what I'm trying to get into these fighters now is the way that my mind works now. I'm trying to instill them for them to take on things now rather than waiting until they get older. Now, I didn't start growing up mentally, and when I say growing up, I mean as I didn't really become a man until I was just about to be 30 when I found out that my wife was, my to-be wife was pregnant with our first child, my daughter. Once my daughter was born, mate, you hear it all the time where people say, "Oh, it made me a man." Trust me, made me a full-grown man, right? Because then all of a sudden, then it's not about feeling the pressures and feeling the ego that you want for yourself to succeed for yourself. I want to prove them wrong. I want to prove me right. I want to make something of myself. It wasn't anything about that. From then on, it was about, I've got to sort my shit out because I've got to make sure that she has the best life I can give her. And I promise you, from then on, it was like, right, I need to crank things up a little bit. I need to actually, not just one day I'll get there. One day I'm going to make it. One day I'll be all right. I've got to make it. I've got to make sure I do this now. If this is what I'm wanting to do, I've got to make sure I do it now. And there's a flick of a switch in your brain where I switched from, I used to be that guy that used to, I'd see a trainer with a fighter in a British title fight, and I promise I'd be like, I'd love to have a fight for a British title. That'll never happen for me. All the time. I'd see people doing punditry on Sky, and I'd be like, I'd say to my missus, I've been with her 23 years. So she's watched the evolution of me as a person, like mentally. And I'd watch punditry on Sky. I'd be like, I'd love to do that, but that'll never happen for me. And I'd speak it. I'd say it. I said, that'll never happen to me. Oh, I wish. I was one of them. I wish. Well, do you know what? While I was wishing and while I was saying it never going to happen to me, it never happened. And then I started and it's cool now. Everyone talks about it. Self-talk and how powerful self-talk is. It's a cool thing now because everyone talks about you. You flick your reels up and people are talking about self-talk and stuff like that. It's quite big now. But it wasn't so much 10, 12, 15 years ago. But there was a friend of mine in boxing called Spencer Fearon, and people would talk about him as the biggest bullshitter in boxing because he was so confident, super confident. And he knows his boxing, knows the history of boxing. He's very good. But he was always positive and he was always like, yeah, I'll do this, blah, blah, blah. But he's a good friend of mine. And he spoke to me one day. And one day I was like, do you know what? I'm just going to have a gym full of journeymen. And it was like, what? I said, I need to make some money. I'm not making any money. I need to make money. I'm going to get a gym full of journeymen. It was like, don't you dare. Oh, what do you mean? He said, you're too good. You're this, you're that, blah, blah. You got to start believing yourself. And he said, you've got to start turning your mind and you've got to start talking to yourself. So I did. I thought, all right, I'll start. And I did. And I'm not saying overnight, but the more I spoke to myself in a positive manner, and the more I stopped saying I can't, it'll never happen. Then not all of a sudden, but things started happening. Started training fighters at one titles, and then it'd be British titles, numerous British titles. Then it'd be so instead of walks to the ring or night before, looking in the mirror and going, oh, morning of the fight, and looking, going, please God, let us win tonight. I just look myself straight in the mirror while I'm brushing my teeth. I go, we're going to win tonight. Everything that I would say or think would be, going to smash this. We'll nail this. Don't worry about it. No problem. Right? And it sounds stupid, but that sort of energy, I kind of got back because life just started getting better and better. And in all areas, life just got better and better.
Dave, I've got to ask you, because it sounds like, and for our listeners, please check out a book called The Secret, because everything you're talking about right now is shouting the secret at me. So maybe Spencer read that and passed it to you.
Do you know what? Everybody tells me about this book, but I've never had time to look at it yet.
It's exactly what you're describing.
It's what you're describing. Yeah. It's a really interesting book. And a footballer, I won't say the name of the footballer, but he's gone on to have a very successful career after playing football, bought me this book and said, you must buy it for somebody else. And everything you're saying is kind of speaking to me from that book. But look, the question I wanted to ask is, like, you're in the business of making people better. You're a top boxing coach. But when I look at situations sometimes, I wonder if people can be what you want them to be without having the experiences you've had. So without going through significant trauma, without having to overcome things, how do you teach somebody resilience? How do you teach someone bravery? How do you teach someone to move forward when everything is against them? That's what I'm interested in, because there's one thing experiencing it and getting in the ring because you are in control of that. However, how do you flip it and how do you make me good at boxing?
So, number one, I always say, if you're willing to learn and if you're willing to work hard and you're willing to be disciplined, then there's no issue. You know, not everybody's going to be good enough to become world champion. Not everybody's going to be good enough to be an elite Premiership footballer. But if you have those three things, then if you're willing to learn, it doesn't matter how old you are, you can always improve. I'm getting better now because I'm understanding more now. I'm understanding how the brain works more now because I'm reading, I'm listening to podcasts. I'm reading about test papers on neuroscience and how your brain works, and I feel part of my training, a massive part of my training. Everyone thinks about the physical side of boxing. We talk all the time. While I'm training it, I'm explaining to you. So you not only you think about when you throw your right hand, don't just think about throwing a right hand. Think about the big toe, because your big toe is the first thing that's going to trigger when you want to throw a right hand at somebody. If you're an orthodox fighter, the first thing that's going to trigger is your big toe, because it's just going to drop into the floor, and then everything triggers off of that. And when you're doing a weight session, they talk about how actually feel the muscle tissues working while you're contracting and while you're doing your rep. Put your mind into your body, and you get more out of it. You got to understand how the body moves. So different fighters have got different mechanics. So there's no point in me training everybody the same. What's going to work for you is going to be different for you. And what works for you is going to be different for him.
So if someone walks into your gym for the first time now and they might be possessing those traits, is that one of those things that would straight away, get something going in your mind saying, okay, this person, even if they don't believe in themselves yet, they're willing to learn, they're disciplined, and they have maybe the physical capabilities that they are blessed with. I can turn this into a world-class fighter.
Yeah, I look at improving every day. I think you got to improve every day, and after every sparring session, you got to improve. But you can only improve if you break your boundaries, if you break your ceiling. So I talk about breaking your ceiling. So if you have the capabilities to go to there, but then every day you just do the same shit that's just going to take you to there, you're never actually going to improve. You'll stay at that level, and it might be a good level, but you'll stay at that level because that's your comfort level. You know you can go to that, that's fine. But then if you're willing to take the risk to try and break through, you're going to take the risk. You might get caught with certain shots because you're trying something new, right? You might make mistakes because you're trying something new. You're going to make mistakes. But every time you make a mistake, as long as you're learning from it, you understand, why did I make this mistake? Why? Right, because I didn't actually take my shoulder with me. I just bent down, left my chin there. I was completely... Right, okay, next time. So you practice. Every time you improve, you break the ceiling, your ceiling goes a little bit higher. It goes a little bit higher. But you have to be willing to make the mistakes to get yourself further. So if you've got that mentality where you're not going to be like, can't do that. No, I can't do it. And you'll just do what you know you're good at, then you can only go to that level that you're at today.
I wanted to ask you one other thing, because I'm so interested to hear, especially with your background and how you train the fighters, right? So there's one thing about the physical aspect and the mental aspect, but how much is it also for you and your gym of now maybe being a father figure to some of the boys or girls that walk in there? Because I can imagine if you have a traumatic upbringing, that will also be a sense of fulfillment, and maybe the way you describe yourself now, where you say I'm a lot calmer, and since the moment my daughter was born and your son, maybe those things which kept you smaller in your mind through the trauma might be now finally growing up and progressing. And how can you, how important is that part for you for the young people that you have in your gym and what you try to do there?
Oh, I find it's massive. So the funny thing is we got asked this question when I was training Bellew. It was people say, do you see yourself as a father figure? I was taking a piss a bit. I was like, no, I'm not old enough to be his dad. It's more like an older brother. But the crop that I've got now, because obviously they're younger. Yeah, I'm quite comfortable in saying it's more of a I see them as my kids. My fighters that I work with, I've always seen as family. Like I said, Bellew as a brother, and people that for me to work with you, especially the older I'm getting, you it's not a case of you have to be worth it in the sense that, oh, I believe you can be world champion. No, because I'm taking on fighters that haven't got the Olympic background where they're supposed to be, multiple world champions. So I'm taking on fighters because I meet you and I say no to everybody. I keep saying no. Every fighter that I train, I said, no, I'm not. I'm all right. I don't want to take any more on. And then asking, oh, can we just meet? Can we just have a meet? I'm like, I've met them and they're a nice kid. I'm like, I just want, all right, I'll help you out. You have got to gel with me where I like you. The problem is if I like you, I want what's best for you. And then your dream is my dream. And I have multiple, it's not my ego, I suppose. The ego went because I'd won British titles, Commonwealth titles, European titles as a coach. Once I won the world title as a coach, then I've ticked all my boxes. I'm like, that's what I got. That's what I wanted to do. Right. So it's about, right, what's your dream? Can I help you fulfill your dream? I watch these kids sacrifice everything. I watch these kids spar every day, and well, not every twice a week. I watch them spar, but every time I watch them spar, and you just look at me and think, the boxers are so tough because you get to see fight night. I get to see what goes on behind closed doors. And so I care about my fighters. And so it goes, I see what they put into it. I know what they want out of it. But then also I see real lives. I see problems where they get the wrong girl and she absolutely screws his head up, and is in bits. And they have problems where they've got family members, parents that are ill, and they have to deal with that. And it's, Dave, I can't make gym today. My mum's in hospital. Dave, I have to deal with the emotional side. I have to make it so my fighters know, and I'm glad because they do, because I've experienced it with them, where they know that they can just come to the gym and just talk to me and talk about the problems and what's worrying them, what's stressing them, what's distracting them. And I can tell when they're in the gym if there's something that's not right. I can tell when they walk through the door. But the biggest, and where you're saying it about as a father figure, the biggest thing that I take from my relationship with my fighters is that they know it's not just, they can't just talk to me about boxing. It don't have to be about boxing. They know that there's a door that's open there where when something's stressing them out, they can talk to me about it. That's a big part of being a coach. What I think you have to have if you want that. The fighters have got to trust you in the ring because you've got their lives in the ring. That's their life. That's their dream, and it is, in some cases, it is their life. Like, it's life and death in that boxing ring. But not always do they feel that they can talk to every coach about stuff that might not be. Boxing is a very masculine sport, and sometimes they might not feel comfortable breaking down and being in tears, apart from when they win a title. But on the other aspect, when they lose a fight or when they're having problems at home, my fighters know that they can break down, they can be upset, and I think that's a big part of having the background that I had and being, because I am soft, and I'll get emotional. I want my fighters win. Belly won't, I cry, bawl my eyes out. My fighters lose, I bawl my eyes out. And I think because I'm like that, they know that if they need be, they can be like that.
Make it comfortable to do it. It's such a amazing thing to hear, because I think your story early on really makes it clear to me where you get your power from, but I think also your actual purpose as a man, from your own dream, your escape, to then achieving what you want to do, has continuously changed and evolved to now you are at a space where you can be so comfortable and be, give these kids and young boys and girls a chance to live theirs. And it's really interesting to hear about the continuous development of your purpose through the own development of yourself as a person.
No, I think I do. I think I'm in a privileged position for somebody that came from what I came from. For me to have a positive impact on you got to remember these fighters are actually trusting me with their dreams. You know, I know what it feels like to be that kid that has a big dream. You know, and it might not have worked out for me as a fighter, but I look at it as though that my career as a boxer paved the way for what I am as a coach. If I'd have been a world champion fighter, would I be doing what I'm doing now? No. I've had far more of an impact as a coach and as a manager than I would have done if I'd have just been a successful boxer, because that had just been my life that had impacted and my life that had been a success. But I've played a part in helping, being privileged enough to help other fighters.
Dave, you spoke about boxing being a masculine sport, and it definitely is. It's perhaps, from the outside, at least, it looks like a sport that has the boxers who have enormous amount of ego, enormous amount of bravado, and often the boxers with the most bravado, the most ego, are the ones who are rewarded the most. However, as a coach, as a manager, you're in leadership positions amongst the boxers, amongst the clientele. So I was fascinated to understand how you look to go about leading in amongst all of this ego.
In what terms do you mean as a leading?
Well, I guess your coaching relationship with the boxers. The boxers have, as most athletes do, I could definitely say Will and myself probably.
I was going to say, it's Barry, you might have to talk about yourself here.
But like, athletes tend to have an ego. Sometimes they struggle to get a true sense of where they're at. They struggle with certain types of challenge. They struggle to know if they're really pushing the limits of what they can, or they can get distracted by the external things, and everyone telling them they're great, everyone they're telling them they're doesn't smell. So
yeah, I get what you're saying. Now, I'm a very realistic coach. And it doesn't matter whether you're a young kid that's coming through, or whether you're Tony Bellew or Derek Chisora or anybody. I don't kiss anybody's arse. I don't dress things up, because it's better to get the truth off of me and to get a bollocking off of me than it is to go in there on fight night in front of 20,000 people and millions that are watching on TV and getting smashed. And I basically tell them right from day one that if you want a yes man, if you want somebody just to tell you when everything is going great and not to tell you when you're not doing things so good, then you need to go and find another trainer. And I kind of get the respect straight away. I kind of get the discipline, and it's part of discipline. And discipline isn't just about doing the right things physically, it's about seeing things for what they are and understanding that you have to, you have to self-correct. You have to understand that you are, that one mistake that you keep making might cost you on your biggest night,
Has that ever been challenging for you, taking that approach?
No, because it's how I've always been. So not really, no. I would say one person a very big personality tried to test me.
We need to know who that is now.
No. And
everyone's Googling right now.
And
Is he British?
He's British. And all I did was said, all right, if you don't do that, goes there, see you later. And just looked at me. I was like, go on in. And he went, I was just testing you. I was like, okay, come on, let's do what I'm doing. That's what it is. And it's quite funny sometimes for other people because I'm not very tall, and a lot of the guys that I've had the high profile are massive, and sometimes people catch me where I'm absolutely bollocking and ripping the life out of them. But that's just how things have to be, and that's where you know how to connect. You have the respect. They know that you've got your best interests in, but despite the egos, they have the discipline, and they understand that needs to be done in order for them to get the best out of themselves.
So what does that look like? Say if a fighter now, biggest ego, you've managed them, they've just come off a big loss, and now it's the other way around where you probably have to then build them up again, because if the whole world is against them, and now all of a sudden you're the person who might have been telling them that they haven't trained well enough before and getting the most out of them, you almost have to rebuild that again. Or do you see that those fighters really have that within themselves, and how much time do you allow for someone to rebuild themselves after a moment like that?
As long as it takes. The mind's a complex thing where not everybody's the same. So, some fighters can lose a fight and straight away they're all right, no problem. Others, the ego's a little bit bruised, and you gotta know how to massage the ego, but not too relaxing massage where they don't want to get up and get back at it. Everybody's different, but it's vocal, it's talking, it's speaking, it's communication. One thing that I will say is that I do think that I'm a good communicator with my fighters, because I will explain things and I might use analogies, but I'll explain things where it triggers in the mind, and they're like, yeah, it makes sense. This is why, we spoke about worries earlier on. I don't worry about anything that I can't control. So stress is a big killer in life. It's a big killer, whether it's people in business, whether it's people in sport. We know about, people having mental health problems, and a lot of it will stem from stress, from over worrying, from not being able to understand your mind. And I'm a big believer in that. Something happened. Listen, I've had a lot of bad shit happen, even as an adult. I've had, where I've invested money into things and it's just gone poof. There you go, done. I'm like, what? But I'm the kind of person where if I can't do anything about something, I won't worry about it. You give me a problem, as soon as the problem hits me, like, shit, right, can I do anything about it? No, right, okay, I can't do anything about it. And I literally just switch it. I won't worry about it. If it's something where I can do something about it, then I've got to find a solution. I've got to do my best to find that solution. I'll work as hard as I can to try and find that solution. And I'll do my research. I'll do whatever I need to do to try and find that solution. And then if I can't, and if it goes tits up, once it's gone tits up, there's no retrieving. It's done. No, there's no need to worry about it. Once you lose a fight, you can't do anything about it. It's done. Don't sit there dwelling on it. Look at it. Understand why you lost. Is there bones in it that you can pick? Can you improve off of that so you don't do it again going forward? Right, okay, let's go. Right, if you learn from that loss, you're actually going to be a better fighter. It's just that your statistics look a bit shitter. That's it. It's a statistic. It's a stat. That's it. A loss is a stat. It's just in people's eyes. So what that is the ego are lost. Oh, do you become, if you're winning a fight, you're boxing brilliant, you win a fight, you get hit with one shot, you're knocked out, boom, that's fight, turn around, done. If you was brilliant for 8.5 rounds and then you got knocked out, right, you're still brilliant, you just got caught with your shot. You don't make it all of a sudden now that them skills that you showed, that boxing ability you showed, it didn't mean all of a sudden because you got caught, you got knocked out, doesn't mean that all that lot didn't happen. It doesn't mean that all the previous fights that you won before didn't happen. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I bet that's such a hard thing though, because I think even in any sport, in football, it's also one thing I really had to learn over time is that it could be really difficult to look at things objectively because you are so guided and led by the feeling of what fans, external,
Exactly.
like
Noise.
your ego. your teammates, and maybe a real sense of letting other people down.
Yeah.
But I think the quicker you can realize that you know, you can still pick the right things out, and if your process is good, that you can continue to improve. But that must be so hard, and I think in boxing is so much more brutal and so much more obvious because it's just you in the ring, no one else around you, and you'll be judged off that one punch, even though you might have gone for 10 rounds, 12 rounds, and it would have looked good, you know. So I can imagine that being really difficult.
But don't you think boxing has a particular problem with this?
100%.
Because if you look at other sports, you look at football, rugby, 100 meters, whatever sport it is,
Yeah.
you lose, you learn from it, then you move forward, you take it on the chin. However, the way, and this is both, I was put everyone in the ecosystem, in the commentators, the fans, the way they view losses is like your life has ended.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, I see some of these high profile boxers, they lose. I mean, when AJ lost to Usyk, people were talking about him like he was done. He's lost to the best fighter in the world.
Yeah.
And now they're saying that he's a bum. How did that make sense?
So the issue that I have with that is that if in football you lose, you win next game. Champions that are winning, look at Liverpool, that have lost about 6 games this season, something like that already in the league, right? The team, you lose, you win, you go back on a winning streak, not a problem. In UFC, most of the champions there have got losses on the record. Nobody cares. In UFC, they tap out, which is quitting. Nobody cares, right? In boxing, oh my God, if a fighter says, I've had enough, wow, it never leaves them. They're always labeled a quitter, right? In boxing, you lose one fight, you shit, like you say. You can be the best thing in the world, you lose that one fight, overrated, and they just slay it, just like. So the toughest thing is the noise, and it's everybody else's opinions. You've got to have that out of your head. You can't afford to let that affect your confidence, let that affect your mentality, you know, your desire. Because I was talking about in the gym today, there's fighters that the career can be going great, and then they lose a fight, and then whereas they were reaching for the galaxy, all of a sudden, because they lost that one fight, they alter the sights, and then maybe they'll reach for the stars, which are a little bit lower. And then if they get beat again, then what will happen is they'll not, instead of reaching for the stars, they then lower it and just reaching for and they're lowering this expectations and their hopes and their dreams. And as they're doing that, that's because their confidence is whittling away.
So do you see any fighters now in your gym that might be going through that process that would start shying away from fights, or saying, okay, I won't take this fight on because if I do lose this, then yeah, my work from the previous years could be forgotten or past?
Not at the stage that they're at now, and not, you know, I had one fighter, Dan Howard, he got beat in his 6th fight. It was a meeting 5, looked sensational in his first 5 fights, and then he got caught with a shot against a very good fighter, to be fair, and he got stopped. And confidence-wise, took a bit of a knock, and it's taken a little bit of time to get that confidence back. But it's a time, and it's a process. And then now, because you talk to them every day, because you teach them every day about how to handle negativity and how to handle setbacks, his mindset's actually better than what it was before. And he was somebody that he wants it too much almost. He was, you know, what in each win too much, was trying too hard. Now he's getting more and more relaxed. And, you know, you have to, as an athlete and as a coach, you've got to understand that there's good days, there's bad days. You know, you have a bad sparring session, it's not the end of the world. A fighter comes out of the ring, they think it's the end of the world. It's like, you go to work, you have a bad day at work, you have a bad day in the office. It's not the end of the world, but it is if you let Monday's bad day affect Tuesday when you go in, then you got Monday and Tuesday as bad days. Then you got two back-to-back bad days, but you only got the second bad day because you was tense and irate from the first bad day. Soon as the day is done, soon as it's a bad sparring session, a bad day at the office, soon as it's done. Reset. Something I'm always saying to my little boy. My little boy's not. He plays football, and he's not afraid of making mistakes. I brought him up not to be afraid of making mistakes. You know, you make a bad pass, it's done. Don't worry about it. If people want to get onto you, it's done. Ask for the ball again. Do it again. Do it again. Because people, especially with kids, they even like with boxers, young prospects, they're in a society, in a world where everybody expects you to be perfect all the time. But look at the guys at the top. Look at Premier League footballers. Look at World Cup winners. I bet you they make a bad pass. I bet you they miss when they're taking a shot on goal. Of course they do. So why should you worry when you do it at 14, at 18, as an amateur coming through, as a semi-pro coming through, as a championship player? Why should you be worried about making a mistake out on a pitch if the best of the best that are getting paid millions and millions and transfer fees for 100 million, if they make the same mistakes, well, what chance have you got? And it's what we say, and what I try and say to my fighters is Floyd Mayweather retired unbeaten. Right, 49-0, retired unbeaten. Went through weight divisions, won so many titles. Right, gone down as one of the greatest fighters ever lived. There are still people on Twitter that will say that he's shit, overrated. So my point is, if people are going to say that about him, what chance have you got? So why would you give a toss about what they think? Yeah. You can't be perfect.
Dave, I wanted to. I'm just want to be mindful of and respecting your time. You've given us so much, but this is a really unique situation to have a top footballer, top rugby player, top boxing coach, and me on a podcast. And I look at, if I was to go and watch Will play football, I'd be like, wow, that's a good game. If I was to go and watch Maro play rugby, wow, that's a good game. If I was to go and watch boxing and someone didn't get knocked out, I would feel shortchanged, right? That is, for me, a bit mad, a bit weird. And I'm honest enough to say that. But I'm worried that in some way dehumanizes boxers in some way. So the things we're talking about now in terms of that boxer's got knocked out, that's him done, kind of speaks to this feeling we have about watching a sport where we're disappointed if someone's not being taken away in an ambulance. Right. And maybe that's a very, very crass way of putting it. But like, no one goes to a football match and is disappointed if someone's not stretchered off. Similarly with rugby, I think, although, you know, I'm not a big rugby guy like Maro will correct me if I'm wrong, but we want to see some big hits, but we don't want to see someone sparked out and looking like they're not going to get up for a couple of minutes. But in boxing, we actually will boo and say we want our money back if we're not seeing someone on the canvas. Do you think that dehumanizes boxers as athletes?
So if you go back way, way, way back in time, when they used to have gladiators in a coliseum, do you think the fans in the crowd just wanted to see him fencing a little bit with a sword and just wanted them, you know, both of them walking off and saying, rematch tomorrow, mate? No, right? It's human nature. We want, when it comes to combat, so boxing is different to football, it's different to rugby, it's different to everything else, right? It's combat. When you are talking combat, it's bringing out the men are always going to fight, women are fighting as well, but I'm talking about as a species, man as in humans, right? Human beings are always going to fight. They're always going to find something to fight about. If it's not parking spaces and somebody getting the last bog roll in a COVID lockdown, right? It's going to be sport. It's something that's in the human race. We want to see fights. We want to see. So when you go along to watch boxing, you are going to watch a combat sport. So you feed off the drama. Drama is getting whacked, right? I don't know anything about rugby, but football. If a football game is 5-0 there's no drama. It's like, can we get? There's one team that's saying, "Oh, can we get a six? Can we get?" There's no real drama. If a football game's 1-0, 1-1, 2-1, 2-2, 3-2, 3, do you know what I mean? There's drama, and it's end to end, and it's exciting. Well, boxing is about violence, and it's about control violence, but it is about violence. So you're turning up there. So it's not dehumanizing boxers, because there's one boxer in there trying to knock out the other anyway. And we understand what it is. We understand what the sport's all about.
Isn't it ironic that the guy who actually hasn't lost a fight wasn't the guy who was banging people out, but there was the guy who knew how to get knocked out.
Yeah.
And I guess my question, my point, my thought here is about how we view athletes as human beings. Because I think if we kind of are disappointed if someone's not hurt, then is that a problem?
I don't think not everybody that goes to a fight it feels disappointed if it's not ending in a knockout. I think they're disappointed if it's a boring fight, as in not competitive, not much action going on. People want to see the action, the drama. There's still a lot of action and drama when it's to and fro-in and it goes 12 rounds points distance. There's still, and it's very rare that you get booed, to be fair, apart from if it's a stinker. If it's a stinker, that's an entertainment level. But if you go and watch a singer and the singer gets on the mic and you've been excited about the singer and got a good reputation and everything, you've listened to the tracks on the radio and they sound great, and then comes on the mic and actually can't sing live, it's like, what? And you're disappointed.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Yeah. You're going because you've got an expectation of something. So if you're going to a Floyd Mayweather fight, you know that he's not a banger. So you're going to see his skills and you're going to see him beat somebody up potentially and see how fast and how good he is at doing it. And you're wondering and marveling at his skills. If you're going to watch back in the day, a Mike Tyson fight, you weren't going to watch a 12-round fight. You're going to see how quick is this guy going to knock him out. Different expectations.
I'm playing devil's advocate slightly just to probe a little bit from my boxing days down at Fitzroy Lodge a long time ago.
Leon seems to be the jack of all sports. One is cricket, then it's football, then it's boxing.
Mauro, if you're not good at any of those sports, you learn to just learn a little bit about each of them, so you can kind of hold your own in some sort of way. But Dave, thank you so much for your insights, your time. I mean, your story.
No problem at all. No, I've enjoyed it.
Will resonate and will, for so many of our listeners, and that story about you walking into Brendan Ingle's gym, like I'm sure there's lots of people who walked into a gym for the first time and walked straight back out and never came back.
Can I just say on that point, right? As a middle-aged man now, right? I'm comfortable with that because I still move and train like I'm in my 20s. Genuinely, I'm not aging. Apart from the grey, I'm not aging.
Looking great.
I feel honestly, I live my life like I'm still in my 20s. I train 6 days a week. Some days I train 7 days a week, and that's on top of training the fighters. It's all a mindset. I think we get old because we put restrictions on ourselves because we think I'm getting old. This business of getting up in the morning and being all crazy, no. I get up in the morning, I bounce out of bed, I spend 12 minutes a morning doing mobility, and then I go out to the gym, train the lads, then I go and train myself, and then I do what I got to do. I just genuinely feel as though we as men, as women, you need to put your health first, and that the more that you make that decision, we've got a new year coming. Everyone makes these resolutions and stuff like that, right? I don't make New Year's resolutions. All I say to myself at the end of every year, I just say to my wife, we have a little look back at this year that's just gone, and go, right, just got to beat that. Got to beat that. That's it, right? And that is physically as well as work-wise and stuff like that. It's about myself, about getting, as I'm getting older. I'm going to deal with myself each decade that I went through. So when everybody told me when I came towards the end of my 20s, oh, wait until you get to 30, you'll start slowing down then. I was like, I'll be in better shape at 30 than I was in my 20s. And I was. I did the same when I got to the end of my 30s for 40s. And they were all saying, oh, 40, that's where it really goes downhill. I was like, all right, no, not for me. And I've done the exact same at 50. I'm 50 now, not slowing down one bit. We get old and we slow down because we make that choice to start slowing down. And I just feel as though everybody needs to keep that same passion, that same drive. When you was a kid and you had that passion, you had that drive, whatever it is, anybody, anyone that's watching, whatever it is, you all had a passion and a drive. But along the way, the majority of us give up on that passion and drive, and then we just settle. And then as years tick by, we use the age as an excuse not to keep pushing hard. But that's what makes us get old.
Dave, I think that's a fantastic note to end on, particularly as it's my birthday tomorrow. So I'm a year older, tomorrow, and I'm gonna take that forward with me. And for those people,
just a level, bro.
Absolutely. I hope I look as good as you when I'm 50, and it's not that far off. So thank you so much for your time, your insights, your energy. Thank you to everybody who's listening and watching Power and Purpose. Subscribe, share this episode, like, comment. Spread the word. We want to build out this community.
Thank